been more clearly defined to ensure clarity on what can be reimbursed. There is a new allowance for the Methven Community Board Chair of $460 for communications equipment. So in terms of the mayoral vehicle, the approach in the past had been to remain silent in the policy on whether or not a vehicle would be provided. However, following discussion on this, officers thought that we should be clear about exactly what can be provided in the policy. So in the report, the recommended option is to make provision for a vehicle with restrictions. Now, these restrictions relate to providing an electric vehicle. The first is that we recommend a monitor is used to track electricity. So if the mayor chose to park the vehicle at home and plug the vehicle in, they could be reimbursed for electricity costs, as the alternative would be providing a fuel card. Second, the policy states that no charging station will be provided in this building here, given that we'll hopefully be moving shortly. And third, the policy states that it is the responsibility of the mayor to install a charging station in their own residence if they wish to do so. So officers determined that these conditions were necessary to ensure that the policy was transparent for reimbursement. These are additional restrictions beyond what is suggested by the Remuneration Authority in their determination. The policy states that it is up to the mayor to determine whether the vehicle will be used for restricted, partial or full private use. And if they do choose to go with restricted or partial use, then a logbook needs to be used. Another issue which I'd like to raise is that of the allowance for the Methven Community Board. So that's page 11 in the agenda. And there is a table in there which sets out what each member is entitled to. Since this policy was drafted, there has been a decision made to provide community board members with tablets. So what I would like to recommend is that the personal computer allowance for community board members is shifted to the internet connection allowance. So therefore the total allowance they receive for communications equipment doesn't change. It's just that they'll be receiving a slightly higher amount for internet connection. They're currently given $100 for internet connection, so that would increase to $200 for the chair and $150 for Methven Community Board members. There is also a recommendation to adopt the elected member conference guidelines. The main change here is that attendance must now be granted through resolution, and that's in a way that things have been done in the past. However, the previous term chose not to operate in this way. And we think that this will help ensure transparency, good record keeping for knowing who's going to what, and also ensure that attendance at conferences is shared amongst all members. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, is the mayoral vehicle the property of the council or is it the property of the mayor?
Through the chair, it's the property of the council, so it would need to obviously be returned at the end of the term if the mayor was not successful again.
And a supplementary, has it got on-road connected to it? The
E-roads.
E-road, is it?
Sorry, I'm not sure. Perhaps someone in the leadership team may know.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it wasn't our intention to have E-roads attached to the mayoral vehicle, but it's in council's hands.
Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask about travel expenses. Last term we, as councillors, could claim over a certain mileage. Has that been taken away this term and it has to be an hour's travel at $37.50? Because I was trying to find a figure amongst this and there was nothing to that effect.
Rachel.
Through the chair, so that is exactly what is in the determination, so we need to provide it at that level. It hasn't changed. It's always been 1 hour and $37.50.
Okay, supplementary. I was just thinking last time if you're a certain K's out, you could claim just on those K's that were over the distance. So that's been taken away.
Philippa.
Philippa.
The mileage allowance hasn't changed for some time. It's 79 cents a K. up to a threshold of 14,000 Ks. The threshold that you're speaking about, where you lived at a distance of a return trip of further than 30 Ks, has been removed from that determination for some time now. So councillors will continue to receive a mileage rate of 79 cents a K on travelling on council business up until, in a financial year, up until 14,000 Ks. The travel time allowance, I've not recorded ever being claimed. It's provided for people that probably travel quite significant distances, and there'll be 1 hour threshold before that kicks in. So, yeah.
Councillor Falloon?
Two questions. One is, why do we have to have a policy on mayoral cars?
Through the chair, so we don't have to have a policy on mayoral cars. In the past, we have just stayed completely silent on this, and I would assume that if a mayor requested a vehicle, that would then come to council separately. So it absolutely does not need to be included in the policy. However, we do feel that it provides clarity for any incoming mayors.
Second question is, if this does become policy, whose choice is it as to who gets a mayoral car?
It's up to the mayor to determine whether they wish to take the vehicle or not.
Supplementary question, therefore once we pass this, if a mayor wants a mayoral car, it will happen.
Yes, that's correct.
Any further questions? Just as a sideline, or add to the comments, most mayors around the country have cars when they're covering big distances in their districts. There's no public transport available in most of those districts. I know Christchurch City does not have a mayoral car, but they do have public transport. And Dunedin doesn't have a mayoral car either. He hitchhikes to work at the moment.
One more question, Mr Mayor. Have we analysed in the last term, would it have been to the council's advantage for the mayor to have a mayoral car or to pay mileage on the mileage that was done at 79 and 30k?
Through the chair, that's quite subjective, and it's difficult to determine because different mayors will attend a different level of events, and obviously some live further away than others. The salary sacrifice isn't huge that the mayor has to provide in order to have the vehicle. However, the remuneration authorities see that as sufficient for balancing the ability of the mayor to be accessible throughout the district and the impact on ratepayers.
Councillor Falloon?
I am totally against the provision of a mayoral car, and if this goes to the vote, I will be moving an amendment that the mayoral car part be taken out so the rest can be passed, as there is some good stuff in it.
Correct, it will be going to the vote, and we're going to the vote very shortly, and we'll determine what happens. Councillor Lovett, still question time.
Yes, I was just asking around the wording on allowances here, any fact-finding or investigative travel outside New Zealand to inspect or evaluate initiatives which may benefit Ashburton District, and that's in the policy there. Does it need to be a bit clarified, a bit better? You know, I just don't want it to be kind of open, you know, that anyone can just go away, or there's got to be definite reasons, whether it's a little bit too loose. I don't like that may benefit.
Through the chair, so the definition of council business applies when it has been granted by resolution. So councillors going to visit other countries on fact-finding missions would need to be approved by the full council first, but before any reimbursement occurred.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just one point of clarification for Councillor Falloon. If we don't have anything about the mayoral car in the policy, the determination will remain, and they're still entitled to a mayoral car. So if the intention was to not have a mayoral car as an option, you would need to have that specifically stated in the policy, and agreement around the table would need to be sought to eliminate that option. The policy documentation that Rachel's got is putting restrictions and additional, restraints on the use and the associated costs, as opposed to allowing it to occur, whereas the determination allows it to occur as it does now.
Have you still got questions, or do you want to go in debate mode?
Got one question.
One question?
Thank you. So, in the past, if the mayors wanted to use one of the council pool cars, they can do that at any time. Is that correct?
That's correct. However, I have heard lately that it's been difficult to get pool cars, and obviously the mayor needs to use the car quite frequently.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rawlinson?
Thank you. The cost of the car, is that in an existing budget, or is this a extension to the present budgets? Did you? I was asking, is the cost of up to $55,000 in an existing budget, or is this going to be an additional expense?
Ms Mosley?
Yes, confirmed it hasn't been budgeted for in the past because we've never needed it to. In the past, we have an allowance for the amount of mileage based on previous terms, so I guess there's a portion of that value that has been budgeted for previously, but it would not cover obviously the capital cost and then the ongoing costs.
Does the mayor lose any salary if he has a car?
There is a salary deduction for two types of usage. With the restricted private usage, there's not.
The mayor does lose salary by having a car?
Correct.
Yep. Councillor Falloon?
Just coming back to the childcare provisions, which I fully support, I just wonder, to strengthen it though, to stop people doing dodgy things as to childcare providers, I wonder if the payment should only be made if they have a registered childcare provider looking after their children. I just think it's better from the council's point of view that we would not like to be seen to be supporting someone by helping with childcare and then something happens because we did not specify that it was a registered childcare provider.
Through the chair, I guess the difficulty that emerges there is when people use private nannies. So the determination is clear that it can't be a family member of the member. However, if a nanny wasn't registered, then that would eliminate the use of any nannies. It's also quite difficult to get children into daycare for one-off days, which is where a nanny would be more appropriate.
No further questions. We've got a recommendation in front of us. On page 4, we can take it as one whole, or we could take it in parts. If there's no preference, we'll take it as a whole. Or we can we won't pass the rest in toto, but we will see if we pass the rest in toto. We can do 1.1 separately if you wish. Do we take the recommendation and then as a whole, and then someone asks for it to be taken in
No,
parts?
Mr Mayor, what you need is a resolution. So a member of this council needs to move something and that will then dictate what you consider and debate and pass or not.
There's a recommendation there. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will move the recommendations as they stand. I'm quite happy with it,
In one part.
in one part.
Seconder?
I'll second that, thank you.
now open for debate. Councillor Falloon?
I would have to vote against that because basically what we're doing is spending ratepayers' money on a mayoral car, and unless that is economically justifiable, we are simply wasting ratepayers' money. I mean, very quickly, I asked Philippa to send out the mileage of the previous mayor, and over 3 years, that amounted to $17,624, which is just over $5,000 per year. Now, if we look at the costs of running a car, and in this particular case, the cost in one part of the agenda has gone from $50,000 to $55,000, and if you say that a car decline costs 25% of its cost price a year to run, and that includes depreciation, the actual running costs, fringe benefit tax, and the opportunity cost of having that money tied up in a car, then that comes to $12,500 on a $50,000 car and $55,000 on a $13,750 on a $55,000 car. So I cannot see any economic justification in providing a mayoral car when mileage more than does the answers the costs of the mayor.
Councillor Cameron?
I actually also support that position. I also think we need to discuss it in more detail, and it needs to be, which we're doing now.
Now is the time.
But with regards to the analysis of the Ks, we've just received that this morning, so I'd like to discuss that as a group.
The analysis of the kilometres of the mileage paid to the previous mayor is a fact.
And that's right.
Yeah.
But if you, as John's just done, if you work that out on a K basis, dividing it by 0.79, you get quite, you end up, it's not cost effective to have a mayoral vehicle. And I understand that the previous mayor did a lot of kilometres as well.
Are you thinking it's all on a cost basis, or is it a method of transporting your mayor around the district in a convenient way? Is a question. Don't need to answer, but Councillor Lovett.
I would just say that often we would go to events with the mayor in their car, and if it was an only personal car and they had kids' car seats and things in it, you cannot expect them to be taking them out all the time. So a mayoral car, I mean, we used it quite often to support the previous mayor in activities instead of borrowing another council car to go. So it does have its uses. It's not fully just for private use, whatever, getting one person to a job. It often was full going to things. So, I support the mayor in having a car in this respect.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. I support the mayoral car as well, and I'm just wondering, I mean, we got those figures from the past term, and that's what they've claimed. That may not be the exact case that they've done, so they could have done twice as many of those and only claimed for half of them, so we don't know that. But yeah, definitely support the use of a mayoral car. I think other mayors have got it. We've also got, the fourth largest roading network in the country, so there's a lot of roads out there, and I think having a mayoral car would be of a benefit.
Councillor Brown?
I've got a question for Rachel, if I could ask just some clarification. Rachel, you just mentioned before, when Councillor Falloon asked that question, even if we take it out of the policy, the option is still there for the mayor to do it. Is that correct?
Through the chair, so as Sarah explained, we would need to have a statement in the policy saying no vehicle would be provided.
So if we don't have that policy, that option is still there for the mayor to get a car?
If we don't include anything in the policy, then
Correct.
yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Yes, I'd like to move an amendment that 1.1 be taken out, not because I'm against it, but because There's lots of good stuff in the rest of the recommendation, and it's a pity to force people to vote against something that the rest of the recommendation with childcare and the rest of the policy, it sort of splits your opinion when you agree with half and you don't agree with the other half. And I'd like to move an amendment that 1.1 be taken out and be debated separately to the rest of the recommendation.
I would second that.
Have we got a seconder?
Just to be clear, the amendment is actually all of previous motion, excluding 1.1.
That's right, yes. No, that's, yes, yeah.
So to be clear on that, you'll be voting on everything but 1.1. Is correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. I'll put the motion. There's no right to reply. There were no speakers. I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. So now we go back to 1.1. It's correct, isn't it, Philippa? Yeah. Which is...
Was that amendment become a substantive motion?
Amendment needs to now be put, and you have to vote on that being
As a substantive motion.
So you need to get that the amendment now be put, and if everyone's in favour, that becomes a substantive motion. If it's lost, we go back to the original motion.
Right. So the amendment now becomes the substantive motion. Oh, I'm putting it.
So we need to vote on that. That you vote on the amendment.
Did we not just do that?
You did that, but then
Yep.
we have to vote on the substantive.
So we're voting on 1.3 through to the end of the resolution.
Correct.
1.2.
1.2 through the end of the resolution. And we're going to put that now. All those in favour?
Can somebody just read that out, please? That- What we're voting on. Just need-
So the motion you're voting on is all of the previous motion excluding what was 1.1. 1.1 becomes, council will make provision for a childcare allowance, etc. 1.2. So that's, you just need to confirm and ratify through a vote that that's.
So the only thing to watch is that one there. Currently includes the vehicle.
Oh, you'll sort that. You will sort that later.
There's a consequential impact on that being put.
You would sort that later.
Yes, but we'll be
Yeah.
saying out loud.
The only issue that would be there now, if 1.1 does not get passed, then it would affect 2.1 later on. So just be mindful of that. So with that amendment now becomes the motion. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. So now, can we have a mover for 1.1? Councillor.
Mr Mayor,
And that motion is, the recommendation is,
Yes,
council
it's
will
still-
make provision for a mayoral vehicle.
correct. Thank you. I will move that.
Councillor Brown, seconder. Councillor Rawlinson,
Yes, I'll second it.
now open for debate. If there is no debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Yes. 2 against. Carried, and I abstained. Yeah, please, yeah. Passed. Yep. The motion is passed. Thank you. Over to item number 6, which is on page 31, is it? 31. Elected members' remuneration 2019 and 20. Who's the author of this report? Hamish? Anything you'd like to add?
I'm just happy to respond to any questions, Your Worship.
Questions? Stuart?
I've got a question, Mr Mayor. Who actually decided on the figures? I thought management decided management figures and governance decided governance figures. It seems that management have decided what governance are going to get as far as salary, which seems back front to me.
Through Mr Mayor, it's simply a recommendation. So indeed, governance will decide the governance remuneration. All we have done is try and frame the debate to assist governance to make that decision. But this is not a decision, this is simply for your consideration.
On page 39, there's a page there from the Remuneration Authority who have a calculator. The figures were put in and that came out. So, which has offered guidance for how we've got to where we are today. But if you want to change, now's the time.
Just to make a couple of points in relation to that, Mr Mayor, a councillor without additional responsibilities must receive a minimum of 25,047, and the full pool of 377,856 must be allocated. So you can't save money on the total, and you can't have a councillor without additional responsibilities lower than the 25,047. And so then it's simply a matter of coming to a view as to how the 377 should be shared, taking into account additional responsibilities, and traditionally we have regarded those additional responsibilities as the Deputy Mayor and committee chairs, and we have continued with that tradition. But the proportion that one is to the other and how that sits comparatively is completely a matter for the council to resolve at this meeting.
Do we have a mover? I'll move from the chair. And second, Councillor Lovett. Open for debate. No debate. I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I think the district is facing a disaster. There's golf ball size hail at Hines, smashing windscreens, and so what's that going to do to arable crops? It just could be absolutely devastating at this stage.
As we can see, and I've been seeing out the window there, the Hines Way, there's been bolts of lightning coming from down there, and our lights have been flickering here as well. So let's. Oh. We can. We're not going to change it. We can just hope it's minimised. Item number 7. Uplifting of building line restriction, and Mr Hydes is here. Ian, do you need to add anything, or self-explanatory, or go for questions?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy just to answer any questions that might emerge.
Okay. Questions, councillors? Lane.
Just one question. Ian, why was it ever put on for a start? What was the reason in those days?
Through Mr Mayor, it appears that at least in 1961, when it was uplifted, there was a provision in this area for a proposed road. So the building line restriction was effectively to preserve the ability to implement that road by restricting development near it. Today we have controls through the district plan which provide equivalent restrictions, but it appears through the passage of time, and I haven't been able to see where, that road, or proposed road, was abandoned and has never been implemented. It looks like buildings have been put in various places that were prevented anyway, and as I said in the report, the roading and property teams can't see any reason why we need it to remain.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. With the diagram on page 43, could you perhaps explain to us the red lines and the green lines, what exactly means what? Because through the narrative it doesn't say F equals E equals G, sort of.
Unfortunately and somewhat unhelpfully, I managed to print out a black and white copy of this. But what we have here is a copy of this. Oh, thank you very much. As a copy of the subdivision plan. Thank you. I've got 2 copies. I'll give you that. Thank you. I'll take this copy. Thanks. So what we have on the red is effectively the lot boundaries. So the proposed allotments for the subdivision. So this emerged because somebody is proposing to subdivide their property and convert one lot into 2. So you can see there that there's a big number 1 and number 2 on there, and they've also got what we call a right of way down through to the public road. That's just a standard provision in a subdivision plan. Then we also have the green lines, which are easements. So we'll have services in place through there. I think the one at the back, the annotated I, might be a sewer line, and there'll be water and rights of way over properties as well to allow the people to access over the adjoining lots. So it's a standard part of a subdivision, which is not really, dare I say it, integral to the matter in question today.
Thank you, Ian. So I take it Spaxton Street is at the bottom of that map with the red lines?
Yes, that's correct.
And so the piece of land in question is in the base of the leg-in sections?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It's through the chair, yes. It is a little bit difficult to read there. But yes, you are correct. It's along the back boundary, so I guess you call it the northern boundary of those lots 1 and 2. Usually, building line restrictions would go along. And it's somewhat confused just to start with. Would go along the boundary of the street for future expansion of an existing street. But in this case, it was put in place because they were proposing a new road at the time.
Councillor Floon?
Is this a residential or a commercial subdivision?
Through the chair, it's a residential subdivision.
Councillor Orlinson?
If all questions are answered,
I
I'm
think-
happy to move that we do agree to the uplifting of the building line restriction at 20 Spaxton Street, Methven.
Second it? Councillor McMillan? Any further debate? I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. The storm's starting to get closer. This plastic, you'll be fine. Item number 8, page 45. Terms of reference, audit, risk and finance. And Hamish, any
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. Again, happy to answer any questions. What we have moved to do with the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee is to prepare the terms of reference ahead of the other committees, because we do have a scheduled meeting on the 4th of December, and so we wanted to give Council the opportunity to consider and discuss and hopefully adopt the terms of reference for this committee ahead of the other committees, which won't meet until the new year. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Floon?
Having looked at terms of reference for audit, risk and finance committees before, I fully support what is recommended here.
The only note is in the background, and it talks about Mr Harrington in the agreement being in place until the 31st of December 2019. At our last council meeting, if you remember, we gave him a term of 3 years, so
Yes.
that little fact is not actual fact.
Yeah.
It's been superseded.
Yes.
So, mover or question? Councillor
No, I'm quite happy to move it, to be
Okay.
honest.
Councillor Floon?
With a change made that,
Yeah, it's just in the background,
yeah,
it's not in
that's
the...
there, so
not in
that's
the
that's
references.
changed, yeah.
Yeah.
So I move the recommendation as it stands.
And Councillor Floon has seconded. Any further debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And number 9, the adoption of the 2020 council meeting schedule. And it was only going through it with Philippa this morning. There's just a couple of changes which we may do, in July being a month where we try to have a gap of a couple of, perhaps 3 weeks, if possible. We can do it by moving the meetings on the 16th of July and the 22nd of July to the 7th and possibly the 8th of July.
23rd.
Sorry, the 23rd, yes. and that will leave that bottom half free for organising a trip away if you wanted. The only complication would be Local Government New Zealand is on the 22nd and 23rd. Oh, Local Government New Zealand is 15.
Yeah, they changed the week.
Oh.
The week that they usually.
Right. Okay. But it, yeah, Councillor Rawlinson.
Sorry, could you just clarify that again? So you're trying to free up the middle 2 weeks or the first 2 weeks? Or the
Would
last
just
2?
about be after the 10th of July to the end of July would be free.
So the meetings on the 16th and the 23rd would move
Would move up to the 7th, 8th or 9th
of August?
of, no,
Oh,
July.
sorry, I get it.
Just
Thank
go
you.
earlier.
That suits. Thank you.
Maybe one on the Tuesday, one on the Thursday, maybe one on the Tuesday, one on the Wednesday.
More than happy to do that.
Yeah. And oh, yeah. And there's one in February where the budget and the council meeting on the 27th is also at the same time as Mayoral Forum. So we'll bring it forward in the week. Have the council meeting on the 27th as 27th in the morning, but bring the budget workshops forward on 20 in the late part of February. But it's a reasonably final draft, but things can still change as the year goes by, but it's pretty much set in concrete. You could rely on it. Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. I was just going to agree with you with the July break. Traditionally, it's been around school holiday time. I'm competing with the hail. So that's good. It's just a week out of school holiday time. So school holidays start on the 3rd of July. If you were trying to match it up with that, I don't think you have to, but just in case.
Yep. Okay, so someone like to move that with those amendments we
I was just going to
adopt?
ask
Oh, question?
question. Who are we trying to satisfy with the July holidays? Is it the staff or the councillors, or, you know, does it really matter? You know, how many is it going to affect?
It's probably the councillors.
I'm going away most of June.
July has traditionally been a month where it's had that space in there.
Right,
So if you're planning well ahead, you could plan something in there.
I'm away June. Okay.
That's all right.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of them had to move anyway because Local Government New Zealand was going to be right on, the conference was right on one of those meetings, so we've
Oh.
worked it out. Someone like to move?
I'll move it with those date alterations.
Okay.
And I'll
Second it.
Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. We may be drowned out for sound here soon.
Just a question.
Yep.
Will Philippa change that on the calendar? You will
Yep.
update the calendar?
Yes, so what I'll do now is I'll add the sector meetings, Zone 5, rural, provincial, local government, and we'll just adjust the annual plan budget workshops in February just to come forward in the week, and I'll send you all an updated version tomorrow.
Thank you.
I think what we might do, we might adjourn for 5 minutes because we're going to have trouble hearing each other here very shortly. So we'll adjourn and take cover if we need to. 5 minutes and we'll reassess. shortly, I suppose. Welcome back, councillors. I'll reconvene the meeting. The thunderstorm and hailstorm looks as though the bulk of it has passed, and I'm sure, and we have heard, that there has been a little bit of devastation and damage done out there in places, so hopefully it's not too bad, and if it is, hopefully they're well insured. But this would be one of the biggest events that's come through Ashburton for a number of years. Well, not only Ashburton, but also South Canterbury. It's been moving up from down there. So let's just hope it's not too bad as time progresses. But we will find out as time progresses as to how bad it is. But fingers crossed. So item number 10, the Mayor's report. And I have a recommendation that we receive the Mayor's report, then I'll talk to it. Councillor McMillan.
I'll move that, thank you.
Councillor Wilson. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. So item number 1, Mayor's induction in Wellington, which they call Mayor's School for short. It was good to get up there and meet a lot of new mayors from all around the country, and existing mayors were there too. Run a 2-day program on what you can and can't do. And some of the topics are there I've noted, which is the relationship with the Chief Executive, which is one of the key relationships with the Mayor especially, but also the Council, because he is our only employee, as we all know, and he looks after the rest, and he does a great job of doing that. Talked about Council benchmarking with the, Council Mark. Talked and sticking to governance, and that was quite a theme. We do the governance, they do the management, and we stick to that, and we all have a happy life, more or less. Civil defence role, it's an important role for the Mayor, and there's some work coming up on that. And council training, which is another important thing for councillors, and there is Philip has got some dates, so as soon as the information comes available for what's available, we'll start putting it out there for you to choose your what training you need, and we'll start doing it. So there's probably not much this tail end of this year, but the early start of next year there will be. And some it could be by webinar, through just on the computer, or actually physically going to a place and having joining with other councils and have a provider provide the training is what we need. Finance is a key one. I've always found it quite useful. You have a 101, which gives you the basics, and 102 is the next step, which gets a bit more into the nitty-gritty. So they will be coming up, and if they're not coming up, we can have them in-house as well. So if you think there's gaps anywhere, just let us know, and we will get some training organised somewhere so where everyone's fully engaged. Should be good. Canterbury Water Management Strategy, the Regional Committee, and is it somewhere? Is it here, or is it later in the? Must be later in the agenda where we have an appointment for that. It was shared with Selwyn and last term, and Ashburton's turn to have an appointee on there. So we'll have that appointed.
In your report, you've got Angus's name down for that.
Oh, there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, didn't have a box around it. So we have got Angus Mackay nominated there to do that position. Do we need to move that, or was it? Oh, correct. Early on, there was a wee bit of confusion with who was appointed to it, whether it was just Selwyn and Ashburton, or and it came up that Christchurch City were involved in it too. But on doing some more digging, and it became apparent that Christchurch City has their own rep on it, so it is only Ashburton and Selwyn that have one there. So Angus Mackay will be our representative on that regional zone committee. We can do. I would like to move that Angus is the member of that committee. Councillor Floon seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Moving over the page, the Waitaha Primary Health, and we've had Mrs. Kerry Smith. She's been on that, and she's decided to resign from that position. So we need to recommend 3 names to that health board to let them appoint someone. So it's going to be advertised shortly, and expressions of interest will come in if there's, and then the executive committee will meet if you agree with that, and they will make a recommendation to who to appoint or who to put up to the health board to select their candidate. So there's a recommendation there for that. If someone would like to move.
I'll move that
Done.
recommendation.
Councillor Rawlinson, Councillor Brown. Any discussion? Yeah, so the the primary health board, that person will sit on that board and do the rural PHO stuff, rural primary health organisation, and be a representative, and that person will come back and report back to council at various intervals through the term, keep us informed of what's happening. Councillor
I just asked a question. So I see here we nominate or put together 3 names. So how are we going to get those 3 names? How will that? Is it going to be advertised? Is it?
Yes, it will be advertised very shortly. So expressions of interest, people will send in those names, and they will probably be early in January when they do come in. So the executive committee will meet in January with those names, and then make the recommendation to the Waitaha Primary Health, and then they will make the decision on who they put on. Sounds clear? It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. There's the meetings that I've attended, and there was one missing, which was Councillor Graham and Councillor Rawlinson attended as the ITO, not ITO, it was ITO, Industry Training Organisation Awards. So thank you for doing that. I'll just put your microphone on, Councillor Floon, and say that again.
I presume the MPI one was Rebovis, was it?
It was MPI people come to me and they asked about or updating me on the Bovis, on what it was like out there, what was happening, and looking at what we wanted to do, council's involvement going forward. So it was a quick 10-minute meeting with them, yeah. But it was around Bovis, but other issues could have been, they're there for do a lot of stuff, MPI, yep. So things since the I wrote this report, you'll probably notice today that the electoral boundaries have changed for the district. It was announced this morning for the general election, and the common sense, I suppose, has prevailed, or the way we would like it, and it is back to the Rakaia River heading south. So beforehand we had some members, some constituents were in Selwyn and some were in Rangitata, and I was one that was in Selwyn, but you would have all been in Rangitata. We're all going to be in the same one there because the boundary stretched to Rakaia River. So that's quite good. So we'll lose Amy Adams, well, we're going to lose Amy anyway, but her predecessor, or her successor, will not be looking after us in the future. So we'll have, hopefully, Andrew Falloon will be looking after us in the future after the election next year. I've also just had a petition come in, was today, on the letting dogs free range at the northeast industrial area. So it's only just come in today. I'll bring that to council next time, and we can have a look and see what we want to do and respond to that. And the council staff will do a wee report on that. So that petition came in today. I was at Zone 5 and 6 meeting with Hamish down in Oamaru early in the week, and they needed to elect a new chairman for Zone 5, and the Selwyn's Mayor Sam Broughton is that person, so he will be chairing the Zone 5. And something more important for us, in the next meeting of Zone 5 and 6 is in March, I think it's the 15th to 16th, 17th, yeah. And it's going to be here in Ashburton. So we'll have the mayors and chairs, which is the regional councils, if they decide to attend here in Ashburton. So you'll Hamish and his team will be working on a program for that to bring them here. So that should be a little boost for our economy. So that will be good. What's the thing? Well, the conference itself is probably a big spender, but the mayors themselves don't spend much at all. They're fairly, she's got deep pockets and short fingers. Pretty close. So,
Will that
Councillor
mean
Wilson.
that we all get to attend that?
Yes, will be. Yep. So we can showcase our district to the mayors of around and chairs around the South Island. That will be. So we'll look forward to that and put an action-packed couple of days on for them, and also do the business that's needed. So yeah. So that's the mayor's report. Any further questions? Oh, Liz, sorry.
Thanks. No other questions, but there's probably a couple of other dates in there. I know that Councillor Leatham attended the senior prize giving at Mount Hutt College.
Okay.
And then I attended Armistice Day as well, so I don't know if they need to be included or how far and wide you go, but...
No, good point. No, we should include them. Then thanks for deputising.
And I
Councillor
attended the Year 12 prize giving at Ashburton College.
Ashburton College. Great. It's great that you're doing your bit. That's good. Yeah, and I think you'll enjoy going out there and doing some of those things too. It's part of your role. So, and it's getting out in the community and making yourself available, which is really good. The mayor doesn't have to do everything. Oh yes, yeah, it wasn't there yesterday at the Arc. Really, what has got it in here? We judged the Christmas cards yesterday afternoon, and I judged them quite some time ago actually, but gave the presentation to the little girl Alice. I can't recall her last. Johnson. That's it. Yes, she did a nice wee drawing up, which will be the face of our Christmas cards, which will come from the mayoral office this year. So that was really good. If there's nothing further, that takes us to the end of the open part of the meeting. And thank you, media. See you next time, and no doubt you'll be reporting on the lack of damage out there tomorrow. I hope we are. Hope you are anyway. So thank you all. So I would like to move that we move into committee. Seconder, Councillor Brown. All in favour, please say aye. Carried.